Hey fellas, thanks for coming out. I'm sorry we had to do it a little later today, but as you guys know, Aaron's mother passed away, and we had the service today and funeral. So appreciate you waiting for us to get back. Really excited. I love this class. I think we got what we need. You know, we got longer, we got faster, we got more athletic. And we got a bunch of guys who love football, and I'm not sure I value all of them in that order, to be honest with you. The guys who love football do really well at Rutgers, and that's something I think is consistent for this group. Most of all, we have a group that wants to be part of what we're building. They can see what we're building, they understand the culture, and they're a good cultural fit. So I think this is 2 years in a row. Last year's class I felt very much the same, and just really excited. Can't wait to get to work with these guys. Some of them will be here mid-year, some will come in June. That's kind of always a floating thing, but looking forward to eventually working with all of them and them being a huge addition to our family. So I'll try to answer any questions I can. Before I do that, though, I have to recognize, this is a multi-year pursuit. Recruiting has changed. You don't recruit one class at a time. You recruit several at a time. And my director of player personnel, Eric Josephs, is phenomenal. He's my right-hand man. His staff, Tim Silvernail, who's our director of recruiting, and Cassie Petty, who's our director of recruiting operations. I mean, those three are phenomenal. And they work year-round to help the coaches and myself build this class, and I can't thank them enough, because that's their primary job and focus every single day, and they're the best. So thanks to them and to the entire coaching staff who works tirelessly to recruit this class, and it definitely makes Rutgers football better. And with that, I'll answer any questions I can. Pooch.
What is Ian Strong? I know he's a good football player, but what is he?
He is a really good football player. He could be a number of things. He could be a wide receiver. He could be a safety. Depending how much bigger he gets, he could even grow into something else. But I believe he's going to be a really good safety. But why pigeonhole him? He's a good enough athlete to do several things. He's the #1 player in the state of New York. That's the second year in a row that Rutgers has been able to recruit the #1 player in the state of New York. So, as I've said many times, we have more players on our roster from New York than any other Division I team, scholarship players than any other Division I team in the country, because New York is, I drove today an hour and 20 minutes. I can be in Staten Island in 20 minutes. So New York is certainly a huge part of what we do.
Greg picked up a quarterback late in the Johnny Shepard. Can you talk a little bit about him? What endeared you to him, or him to you?
Yeah, he caught my eye. I get confused now when I was out. I was out, I think it was a bye week, and I went by the school. They had a corner that we really liked, and I saw him, and he caught my eye. So we kept following him, and Eric kept showing me every week his games, and I just loved the way he played, his temperament, the way he led his team. He's a winner. I mean, the guy wins at everything he does, and I finally at the end I just said, I want that guy on our team. So look forward to coaching him.
How important has it been to kind of go back down there and have success, and how much do you feel like you've made progress going back down there and kind of bring guys?
Well, Florida has always been an important part of our recruiting strategy. First time around and in the second time around. It's hugely important. I think we got some really fine players and really good people, guys who, see what we're building and want to be part of it, see what our culture is and want to be part of it. That's the most important thing. And, nowadays with all the social media and all the, technology, the world has shrunk. So it's even more convenient than it was last go-around. But, I told you the story. When I went to coach at the University of Miami in '99 and 2000, I fell in love with Florida football. They play it year-round. They practice, 15 or 20 practices in the spring. I know a lot of people down there. Our coaches know a lot of people, so it's really a natural fit for us to to emphasize recruiting in Florida. And, you know, there's so many flights from basically every part of Florida to the New York area. So it's pretty good natural fit.
Coach, I know you're a social media savant, but
that's an understatement.
Yeah. I know you guys put out these videos with Scott Hansen from the Red Zone. It kind of made this big splash. I'm curious if, A, that was a paid partnership and how that came about. Yeah. And did you like the outcome of it, I guess?
Well, I thought it was a great idea. You know, our creative staff, Jordan Walkstein heads that up. Our creative staff is phenomenal. And they meet and they discuss things all the time. And as you joked about, okay, I am not such a social media savant. I really don't like it. So I let the young guys figure out what we should do. They thought it would be a great idea, and I agreed with them. And you know, I know the kids, our signees, really were excited about it, and it's gotten a pretty good feel. So anything that, you know, you can get that excites those kids, that's good to me. And now you watch. I mean, that'll become what everybody does. You know, that's okay.
Got a two-parter for you. Are you any closer to offensive coordinator?
That recruit is not. No. Today is about recruiting, but it's a very timely question. So I'll just say that we're working on it. I'm working on it. But the reality is we need to get the right man for the position, not the fastest. So when I finally decide that it's the right guy, I'll let you guys know immediately, and we'll get to work building our offense.
And do you plan to take a quarterback from the portal at this point?
Well, you know, any position, you know, quarterback obviously is the most important position in football, maybe in all of sport. But if we have a guy, whether it's the portal or in high school, if we have a guy that I think can make our team better, we're going to recruit him. But it has to be a fit. It has to be all those things. So we've looked at every single quarterback that's coming to the portal, and we've evaluated them. So we're certainly looking at them all. But if I think it can make us better, we'll definitely recruit them. But that's on an individual basis, every single guy. But our office does an incredible job. Every player that enters the portal gets evaluated, and in a rather fast manner. So you can imagine when all those guys were flying into the portal, it was some late nights and some early mornings. Sometimes those ran together for that crew. But yeah, we'll evaluate everyone. If they make us better, we'll make a move on it.
Just a really quick follow-up. I mean, so if you don't, then you'll add. If you don't, you'll go into next season with a very little experience at quarterback. I mean, Gavin played some this year. Obviously, he would be the starter. I mean, does that concern you, the level of competition you would have in that room? If you?
Well, it would be Gavin, it would be Evan, it would be a Johnny, and then it would be our walk-ons. So we'd have three. You know, my goal is to always have 4 scholarship quarterbacks. That's always been the way that we've done it. If you go way back, maybe you had 5, but that doesn't work anymore. The reality is guys don't hang around if they're in a 4-quarterback room. 2 of them usually leave. I'm really excited. You know, you say there's not a lot of experience, probably not a lot of game experience, but Evan's been in this program for 3 years now, and he's played some games. And now with that room, kind of those 2 guys kind of being a little more seasoned, I look at them a little differently than that they don't really have experience, just that they've been around. Now we're all going to be starting new in whatever system it is that we're running, so there'll be some of that learning curve anyway on the ramp up. But you know, you got to remember, like, look at some of the guys that have come to us through the portal. I mean, they've come as late as June and July. You know, so there's several. Everybody wants to get excited about this window right now. There's going to be a lot of portal movement. You know, you only have to be in by the 19th, right? And then there's another portal opening after the spring. I think there's going to be a lot of portal movement after the bowl games. You know, I think this is a way of the future that, you know, you're really just going to have to. It's going to, if you think there's a beginning and then an end, I don't see it ever being an end. I think it just goes like this, and it's something very much like when I was in the National Football League. You have your pro personnel department, right, that constantly knows about everybody in the National Football League. Now, that's easier because there's only 1,696 active players in the league, but they also have to know about all the guys that are on practice squads, which is another 320, and then they have to know about the guys that are on the street. So it adds up quickly. I think college football is getting to be like that, and you have to be prepared. So, you know, do we here kind of put a little bit more premium on the guys that are from this area that went away? Sure. If we're studying guys that possibly could go into the portal, you look at those guys. But you have to be prepared, because if you wait for every guy to show up in the portal, you know, you're usually behind. Truth of the matter, you have to stay up. So we're evaluating all the time. It's become that, which, again, I don't like when people say those are unintended consequences. Like, you have to be a fool to think they're unintended. I mean, what do you think was going to happen? That people weren't going to evaluate people throughout college football? I mean, that would be silly to think that. If you think that any college coach that is trying to win would do that, then you don't really understand football. So, and the competitive nature of it. So it creates a lot more work, and it creates bigger and bigger staffs. You know, who's going to do it, right? People have to do it. So you don't want to get me started on what I think, because that would be a longer conversation than we have time. But, yeah, things are a little messed up right now.
Greg, going back to high school recruiting for this class.
Thank you. I like it, yeah.
For the second year in a row, you took a guy that was predominantly a quarterback, but you're taking him as a wide receiver. Last year was Rochelle. This year is Nakun Jr. How do you evaluate these guys when most of their tape is predominantly playing quarterback?
I think, you know, in this day and age, there's so much to look at, Richie. So there's camps, there's combines, right, where these kids go. Other sports you watch, hand-eye coordination. But when a guy's really talented as a high school quarterback, you go back years ago with Coach Paterno. You know, he recruited several quarterbacks and put them at all different positions. And you got to remember, even in high school, I think that position requires a great decision-making, right? You have to have hand-eye coordination. In this day and age, if you're at a school that has any quarterback runs, then you have to be able to run the football like a running back. So think of all the skills. You know, you can I think if you try, you can see that skill. And, you know, we're thrilled with Rochelle. And, you know, I think Junior's going to be the same. I think Junior's a really fine athlete. And who knows where they end up. I don't try to, you know, kind of to Fuch's question, why pigeonhole them? Get them here and figure out where they fit best. I know if you get guys that are great athletes, that run really well, right, and that are a cultural fit, we'll find a place for them to play.
Greg, a couple of follow-ups on OC. I'm just wondering if you can give some details as far as people you've interviewed, any roadblocks you've hit, the interest in the job you've seen out since you've started going about finding people, just any details you can share on the process.
I know you got to ask it, but you know the answer, right? I mean, yeah, I'm not going to get into any of that, right? That would be self-destructive. When you're working a search, you don't ever, you know, volunteer that information, because that could ruin somebody's situation where they are right now. Certainly, they're all guys that are working. They're all guys that have jobs, and I would never jeopardize one of the candidates. But you got to ask. That's what I said to Steve. It's a timely question, and I don't have any problem with it, but I can't get into the details, as you imagine.
Well, I appreciate you understanding.
Sure.
And just another one on OC. I imagine
do you understand that?
I do.
There you go. Good.
When you're recruiting, I imagine you're recruiting a lot of offensive guys out of the portal, and I imagine they have questions to you about the offensive coordinator. When they ask you those questions, I guess, one, do they have those questions? And if they do, what do you tell them in the situation where you don't have someone in that position?
You know, most didn't really have questions about it. Most want to know, like, if I'm a receiver and I know I can come in and be a #1 receiver, are you going to throw the ball some? Yeah, okay, I can do it, as long as there's catches to be had. If I'm a tight end, are you going to use the tight end? Well, yeah, if there are, you know, if you as the head coach tell them we're going to use the tight end, you know, so does it help to have that guy to speak to him? If the guy's a good recruiter, yeah, the more good recruiters you have, the better. But I don't think it's as big a deal as maybe one would think. You know, again, if you're not going to use the position, so that's one thing that I have to answer him as a head coach. But I think it's overall it's not been an issue.
Greg, you added two portal guys in, Rogers and Dixon. Can you just mention what kind of brought you them?
Yeah, I think #1, both really good players. That's the first thing that brought us to them. One's a corner and one is a safety. We had some connection with our staff. to both of them and our players for that matter. So when they went in, we thought they were good targets. We immediately jumped on them and got them in to visit and did all those things, and really thrilled with both of them. I think they're going to come in and really be part of our defense in a hurry, and that excites me. In the back end, I think we're going to have a really strong back end of our defense.
Greg, two-part question. One, you got some key players back. How does that excite you? And also, any thoughts on NIL and Knights of the Raritan, the $1 million match?
Did you say the $1 billion match? Oh, okay. I was hopeful you said billion, but well, you're right. You know, getting Mo Toure back. You know, a lot of this. You know, I kind of alluded to it at the end of the year, but it's probably a good time to talk about it. You know, we had 12 surgeries that ended guys' 2022 seasons, and I just did the wrap up with our medical people, and we had 179 missed games from guys in the two deep through surgeries and injuries. I've never had it like that. You know, I think a year ago it was 101 missed games. So it was 78 more missed games from injury. And when you're doing it, you hardly even realize it. You know, you just keep going, next man up, you keep game planning. But when you, at the end of the year, when you look at it, you go, holy cow. And Mo Toure, who was our leading sacker in both 20 and 21, and Moses Walker, who was, you know, as I mentioned, the #1 player in the state of New York a year ago, both of those guys got hurt in the spring. And then we had 10 surgeries within the season that put guys out for the year. So 12 guys overall. So to get them back and to get some of these other guys back is really going to be exciting to see that defense, and because a lot of the guys were on the defense at full force. And then the second question about NIL, you know, again, that's the climate and the area that we are in right now in college football. And I don't like the way that it's handled. I do think players should get paid. I've said that since the day I took this job in 2000. I mean, I stood up at a coaches meeting once and suggested, and kind of got laughed at. But had we had a little more forethought earlier, I don't know if it would be such a mess right now today. But we are where we are, so there's no use crying over spilt milk. I think that it needs to get under control. I do think the NCAA is trying, but it's really hard right now. The momentum is in the other direction. So what you have to do is you have to build your own. Don't cry about what somebody else has. I've never done that. You know, look, there's never been equity in college football before, so why should there be now? I mean, I'm not worried about that. I'm not trying to have equity. You know, we find the guys that we like, we recruit them, we coach them up, we develop them, and that's how we've been able to go compete. So we'll continue to do that. We will use NIL. I really do encourage our fans and our supporters that you know, some people just don't agree with it. The way it's being done, I really don't agree with it in all ways, but it is what we're in right now. And if we want to compete, we have to be able to let our players, especially our players, retain the players we have. That's the critical part for me, because you know, people don't have a clear understanding what the rules even are. Like you cannot use NIL within the rules, right, to recruit a player, whether he's in the portal or he's in high school. That's illegal. I'm going to give you $5 to come play at Rutgers. You can't say that. You can't do that. Yet it's done every day, multiple hundreds of times a day. We're not going to do that. At the end of the day, I'm going to go to bed at night and know that we've done things the right way, and I'm good with that. But we do need it, because you know what? You got to retain the guys that sit in these seats right here, the good players that you develop. And so far, so good, but it's just going to get more and more competitive to keep your own players. And again, we're trying to find the guys like we did this year that want what we have and that want to be part of what we're building. So again, I'm really excited. We're involved in it. We're gonna use it the best way we can at Rutgers, and I just encourage our fans to help support that, and our supporters, our boosters, to help support that, because it is critical, very critical.
We have time for 2 more questions. You mentioned speed and length that you added with this class earlier. I guess compared with the previous few, how much closer do you feel like it needs to be, you know, compared to when you first took over, and how much do you feel like you guys improved in that area overall?
Well, I think it's a good question. I think it's more the cumulative effect, Chris, than it is like this many guys versus that many guys. I look at it as like a pipeline. If you start a siphon, once it starts coming out the other end, then it just keeps coming. Well, that's where we are. We're trying to fill that pipeline so it starts pushing them out the other side. And now we have, play after play after player that has those skills when you look at them. An NFL scout said something to me. He stood there and watched all our guys come up the stairs and take to running. He said, you can clearly see the guys as you came and your staff, you clearly made that a priority. And it is a priority because we play in, the Big Ten is called the Big Ten for a reason. It's not the Little Ten. It's big people that play in this league. And when you look at the people we play, they're really, really big guys. And you have to have big people to play in this league.
You touched on it on your NIL answer, but a number of college coaches in recent weeks have talked about poaching in college football. Washington State talked about it. Mac Brown at UNC talked about his quarterback. I guess I'll ask you directly, have you heard any of your players, other programs reaching out to your players and attempting to poach them?
I have. Yep.
I imagine that concerns you. What are your...
They're here. So we're fighting it off, right? But, yeah, it's happening. I don't like standing up here and feeding the fire, so to speak. It's part of life right now. But it's a life that we made. So like anybody who wants to moan and groan about it, we could have avoided all this. We didn't do a good job, and it's our own fault. So, you know what? Figure it out. As I tell our players a lot, you got to figure it out. Well, we as coaches got to figure it out. And that's what we're trying to do here at Rutgers. It's not easy, and there are people that have more resources in that area, that you know. And but let's be sure we're under the same understanding. This isn't new to college football, right? It's been going on forever. It's just different kind of mechanisms to do it now. So we're going to keep doing business the way we do it, and I feel confident that it may take a little longer, but we're going to get there. There's not one concern that we're not. We have really good people in this program. We made it even better finally today with this long process in recruiting this class. We'll have more additions, and we'll just keep moving forward.